Does not mean that he's mistaken every hadith, nor in any other hadith without evidence.
Okay, that's a good point. But what if, okay, so what we're trying to establish is that this is, basically what we're saying is...
this is going against ration, it's going against physiology, it's going against science.
There's evidence against it.
Okay.
This is a hadith that's going, so...
But what we're basically saying is this is how it was understood at all times.
Many understood that.
So when Abu Bakr said this, radiallahu anhu, when he made the statement that if this religion was based on logic, we would wipe under the sock, not on top of the sock.
Okay.
So, if
that's different. This is different here.
Why? Let him
utterly different.
Because
the wiping, the whole wudu is pure symbolical. The Sharia did not enact it so that you clean your feet. It could have told you to wash with soap and said it wanted to clean it. It's a pure act, which it's an act of obedience. We are not talking about a physical reality, describing a physical reality which contradicts physical non-effect. There, it's an injunction. Like, for example,
it's not completely symbolic. Otherwise, we wouldn't have added a sunnah act to it. Because if
but it's essentially, it's essentially symbolic to extract obedience. In another religions, there was no wudu, there was a full body wash. For example, the Jews had a full body wash every day. At least a group of the Jews, the Essenes, they had to have in the morning a full body wash, as if they had janaba. We don't have that. So every revelation, that was obviously a harsh injunction for them.
But what Ali is saying is not specific to the wudu. He's making a point, generally speaking, about Islam. He's not speaking about wudu.
No, I understand what Ali is saying, but what I'm saying is to give Ali a credit for that, he means these Sharia injunctions are not based on rationing, because the bottom of the khuf get more filthy, so it should be wiped. But that's what it means about the Sharia said you wipe on the top, on the top of it, not on the bottom. That's perfectly fine, which shows clearly that the rationing, that the reason is cleaning, is not a rationing. That's not a rationing of the Sharia. That's not the reasoning of the Sharia. If it would have been the reasoning, it would have been like that. The Sharia has another reasoning.
There's your full point.
Yeah, because what he might be saying is that he could be saying that, but what he might be saying is that what comes as revelation isn't necessarily logical.
No, it's logical, but it has its own logic. No, if Ali means that, then he's mistaken. Then we have to say even Ali is mistaken. It's definitely not the logic of Ali or the thing, because some people, it will come in their mind at first stance that it is because of issue of cleaning. No, it is not. For example, tayammum is very clear, has nothing to do with cleaning. It's just the opposite. If you say you must have real dust, which is mistake actually.
Which is even worse.
And that's when you wipe your hands. That's pure symbolical. But let's assume those because I remember some Hanbali in Saudi Arabia, when the hospital, they get them like a bag of sand. Because they cannot make wudu. And there was like people, this pure symbolic, you can hit your hand on the wall even and do it. You don't need that. But that's stuck in their mind. If it's even dust, that's even worse. It will make you even dirtier than before.
So are you saying that revelation is logical?
Yeah, but it has its own internal logic.
So not human logic?
No, it's internal logic which you can understand. Like for example, the tree which Adam was commanded not to touch was a very delicious and very nutritious tree in itself. But he was commanded.
Wait, actually, why? You said
to show obedience and to test his obedience and compliance with Allah's commands.
So if
we would have been commanded to avoid a tree which is thorny and nasty, it wouldn't be really a real test.
You said a good point when you were answering. You said it can be understood. Yeah. But what if it is not? I think that's the point.
So what about
because what's logic? That's the point. What if it's not understood? No. Like he said, like he asked a question that, so is revelation, does it have to be logical? And you said yes. And he said, can it be understood? And you said because it can be. It can be. It can be.
It has its own internal logic. It can be.
But if it's not,
then it can't be. What if it can be?
You're saying it must be.
It can be, for example, Ibrahim to be ordered first after that long life and yearning, he gets son and he ordered to slaughter his son. It has no purpose except to test him and see how is his belief.
Okay, but
and that was abrogated in the last moment.
That's not logic.
Huh?
But that's not logic.
What means logic? This is the ultimate logic, that the sovereign want to see are you obedient or not.
Okay, so
this is the ultimate. If this is not logic, then all logic must vanish.
But that's Allah's logic, right?
Yeah, the absolute has the right to command whatever he wants and see if you comply.
But that doesn't translate to our logic, because that's not...
No, I'm not saying this is logical. The claiming our or little, but it has its own
every ahkam is logical by that definition. Right. Every ahkam is about obedience. Worship.
Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely. Who said otherwise?
So then that's...
Who said otherwise? Until Allah tell you, I have another reason for that.
Well, maybe the word logic is an inappropriate word.
Exactly.
No, it's logical. This is the ultimate principle.
Okay,
Depending on logic.
it's logical to assume that the creator who created you, okay...
Not logical is mandatory, otherwise reason will disappear.
Fine, so it's logical that you obey the creator, irrespective of what the creator says. Commands. It's logical for what you're saying. It's logical to obey the creator.
It's the necessity of logic, it's necessity of reason. Yeah.
Okay. Because I was going to give you the example. For example, if someone cleans their hands, they wash their mouth, they clean their nose, and they wash their feet, and all of a sudden they're about to pray, and they fart. They break wind.
Yeah.
They wash every part of the body except cleaning the bum again. Their backside again. So
Absolutely.
There's no logic for us humans to look at that.
No, absolutely.
There's anything to...
It is the law. It's set this way to have its own internal logic, internal systematic. But for the Sharia, the only fundamental reason is the divine command. So the absolute sovereignty of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala.
Going back to...
has no other further reason in ultimate calculation. It may have immediate, for example, enacting a certain punishment to deter from the crime, to purify the criminal. These are immediate purposes. But that's not the only reason, or the dictating reason to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. He may disclose to us certain reasoning that it will be good for you. I'm doing that for mercy for you. I'm forcing you in this direction because it's better for you. That's all making good sense. And some texts have come like that.
Imran's got a point that he just wants to...
So then going back to Ismail's question earlier, technically if that hadith was true, it wouldn't conflict any internal logic.
No, it will conflict because it conflicts how the universe is created and facts which we have to start from. The same fact we started knowing that Muhammad existed in Mecca. We know that the historic narration. We know that by verifying books. We know by physical reality.
I'm saying, but if it was true, then there would be nothing that you could say.
No, it can't be true. It's impossible.
Yeah, but Dr. Muslim, if Allah...
Because Allah will never reveal, nor His Messenger say anything which contradicts the physical reality.
So this is what you're saying. It must be logical. So I'm just adding to your point.
No, this is contradicting the reality which Allah created as we know it's created.
No, I'm just trying to define your point, Sheikh. What you're saying is, before you said it can be logical and understood physically, but you're saying it must be. Are you saying it must be, revelation must be logical, or it can be? There's a difference.
It must be, and that's the internal logic. This is absolute logic. This is if that's not the ultimate logical principle, if Allah is not the ultimate sovereign Lord, then whole existence is devoid of any meaning. What's the meaning of La ilaha illallah? The meaning of Musa saying, teach me something I can
I had an interpretation on that hadith. I thought about it long and hard. I even read a commentary on Ibn Hajar Asqalani's understanding. And there's a scholar who put a pretty good point of view. He said that hadith there is talking about predestination. It's talking about qadr. Yeah. He said the way I look at it is like this, because it was troubling him as well. This scholar, yeah. He said, what I think it means is Allah's looking into the future and He's saying, right, there are going to be some stingy people who are going to hoard meat. And because of them, I'm going to make meat rot. So meat has from day one, meat has...
But this contradicts the physical reality of the universe because life and earth is renewing and dying and so on. And this is the rotting of meat.
No, Doc, you misunderstood. Before He's made the creation, before He has initiated anything.
I think he's referring to something now, to ghaib, which we have no access to it.
No, that's the way he's interpreting the hadith.
I'm not denying this is a possible interpretation, but this is a very obscure one. I would say Allah's fashion in a certain way. Meat is rotting, and then Bani Israel has this myth, and
he's saying if it is easier to assume. If it was not for Bani Israel, if it was not for them, meat would not...
I'm not denying that it's a possible interpretation, but this interpretation is so loaded with complexity and metaphysics is much more than if you apply the so-called Occam Razor, it will fail immediately. A very simple interpretation. Abu Hurairah is a fallible human being. He's an excellent narrator. We have an evidence here that he made a mistake.
The reason why there's a dhikr is protected. The reason why there's a problem with saying that Abu Hurairah has made a mistake there.
It's protected by
the dhikr is protected. Yeah. So he will, the Prophet was not ma'soom in a way, apart from the dhikr, because Allah said He will protect the dhikr. Yeah. He can make mistakes, He can forget. But we know in this instance, Allah is saying whatever you do,
wrong. They cannot make mistakes and can't forget in Sharia. But let's say that we are talking about, we are coming up right now. Let's give another hadith, which all this interpretation will fail. The hadith about that Adam was 60 feet into the sky. and the creation shrank steadily until now.
Is that sound hadith?
Yeah, it is in Bukhari also. It's going to Abu Hurairah. So made a mistake there. It's from Ka'b al-Ahbar.
Okay, fine.
And even Ibn Hajar was stuck with it. Instead of going Allah knew and so on, and or Adam maybe was the dinosaur. Yeah, if you agree in Adam with dinosaur, I have no problem. But there's a big problem because dinosaurs did not seem to be having sufficient rationality to be worthy of sujood of the angels as a narration. And this is the sujood for the future.
But then Isa Islam brings the dead
protection of the dhikr, part of the protection of the dhikr that's narrated by Ahad is that there are facts which will clarify to you. Allah put you a sign clearly. Look at the Quran which says clearly that the previous nation were knowledgeable about people rotting in the grave and only the bones remaining. And this is meat like the meat of the animals, sitting of the same type, and this rotting away. So look at this and verify that, and in that one, Abu Hurairah made a mistake. It's no problem.
Okay, The people of the cave.
That's much simpler than this complex development there.
The people of the cave, neither were they prophets. One may argue it was a phenomenon or it was a miracle. I'm not sure.
It's a miracle. It's an exception.
But you can't find their physical, their bones or anything. Some people are debating whether. Now they're saying that now actually that cave is now in Jordan. They used to think.
But they died after that.
Yeah, I know. But the point is that we just believe that now.
Rashi
tells us that. Wait. Rashi tells us that it's impossible for a human being to sleep for 3 years.
That's not Russian.
Of course, it's rationality.
No.
I use my 5 senses. I perceive the reality that a human being cannot not sleep for more than 10, 12, 20 hours, but they have to wake up and then they sleep again.
No.
300 years in a cave.
Russian says that physically is not possible. Yes. But this is not rational.
But now this is a case where this is a dhikr, this is from Allah, and Allah is saying that we can do that for 300 years.
Determine the rational.
Or maybe there was
from Allah. I'm denying it's from Allah. You are proving it. You are claiming it's from Allah.
No, I'm saying that this is what we believe.
No, we don't believe that. When Allah said, I protected the dhikr, He protected the Quran in a certain way that we discuss in the book of Tawheed, and we protect the Sunnah in a certain way that's transferred by Ahad. I put sign to show who made a mistake and who lied. The liar will be exposed and the one who made mistake will be exposed by showing his mistake. It could be by a illa in isnad, but could be also an illa in matan. This is by necessity of reason. And if, for example, Bukhari is having also narration with correct isnad, and it says, when the people of paradise are entering paradise, people in the hellfire, then there will be enough place in paradise for more people. Allah create more people for it. Just extra to fill it. And then the narrator, by confused, by sabq dhihn, by his mind jumping before it, and they create people for the hellfire. And Bukhari narrate that with Islam and saying, this is wrong. Because nobody will be created for the hellfire to be punished for no sin committed. Well, the hellfire is the tree and it will collapse on itself and become so tight that it's full enough. And the hadith said the compeller, Al-Jabbar, will put his foot in it and force it down and they say, enough, I am full now. Because he promised the hellfire, I will fill you. And she cannot be filled. And he pushed her down, said, enough, I am full now. So even Bukhari narrates one that the signs of mistake is also a clear text error. This is the clear text error. Here it is the error. We know that Abu Hurairah and other Sahaba were. I give you even something worse than that. The story of Harut and Marut. That they were angels that came down to others. All these myths is even narrated with better isnad than this one. Going to Nafi' and Ibn Umar, and even Nafi' or Ibn Umar made a mistake in one narration, claiming it's the Messenger of Allah saying, and they claim this Zuhra, this Venus is that woman which deceived Harut and Marut. No, this is all nonsense. It's a myth. We know the narration from Salim, that Salim said it is Ibn Umar, narrated with Ka'b al-Ahbar. But Nafi' or Ibn Umar himself, one time in a moment of the mind not 100% present, say, I hear the Messenger of Allah saying. So either mistakes from Ibn Umar himself or from Nafi'. But Allah put us aside in that case, but Salim narrated it clearly from Ka'b al-Ahbar, and other narrated it Mursal, Maqtu'at Ibn Umar.
But you've not answered the question. Do you agree that the people of the cave lived for 300 years?
And Al-Azhar came out of the grave after he started thinking. That's even worse than that. What's your problem with the people of the cave?
But the question here is, that narration in the Quran doesn't agree with science.
I'm not saying this agrees with science. I'm saying this could contradict the Quran, which says the people before Ibrahim were saying after we have rotted and gone away. So it's rotting before Bani Israel. That's what I'm saying. And I disagree with the physical reality. We see the dinosaur bones or the meat has rotted long ago before that.
Yeah,
Do you think the dinosaurs were there with their whole size and shit, but it's like it has come and they started rotting?
That says there's a verse in the Quran that says there was a generation came after Noah, and they said here is a messenger who's saying that after we have become bones and disintegrated, are we going to be brought back to life? So that's an example of meat rotting, because some humans are cannibals as well. So I'm assuming when they kill humans and put salt on them to preserve them, their meat never used to rot as well. So humans fall under the category of meat. We have flesh, never used to rot before.
No, that's it. Flesh
and you've got someone in the Quran saying...
So the comes before Naql then? So the
no, not Naql and Naql. The Naql is faulty. What I'm saying is the Naql is faulty. The correct principle, Ibn Taymiyyah spelled it out, say, Aql and Naql cannot contradict each other. If there's a contradiction, then either the Naql is faulty, or the Aql is mistaken and think it's Aql. But it's impossible that both will contradict each other. The correct Aql cannot correct Naql. It's not possible. There's no way. This is impossible. That's impossible. That would be contradiction. And especially in matter of akhbar, we're not talking about ahkam. Ahkam is divine injection. Do this, don't do that. Here the divine has the absolute sovereignty to do. He limited himself by certain limitations which have in the book of
Hukum is exempt from this.
It's not exempt. It is by oath necessity. Is the sovereign ordering you to do something.
No, see,
this is something different. This is insha, ordering you to do something out of your free will as obedience. Here is reporting you the reality is like that, and someone claimed the reality is different. That's impossible.
The difference is getting back to this point, is what your human understanding of logic is versus what Allah knows is best.
Yeah.
See, someone may not be able to describe what Allah is doing as best for us, as an example, but because of this, what he's calling internal logic, and you cannot describe it, I cannot make sense of it, I cannot make sense of 300 years sleeping, I cannot make sense, but he's saying whatever Allah is determining still has some form of logic and it is best. But the miraculous,
but maybe he's...
No, but Dr. Ross is also saying is that when it comes to akhbar, it has to be scrutinized.
Yeah.
But in hukum, there is no scrutiny, because hukum is a divine directive.
Yeah.
You do it.
You have to accept. You have to scrutinize only the isnad. If it gets there, then you cannot use a logic that it doesn't fit my rationality.
Isnad only for hukum, but not the matan.
Also matter in matter of synchronization with other isnad, with other ejections.
Just to verify, but not to kind of... Okay, fine.
Yeah, you see, this is usul al-fiqh. This is well developed. That's not an issue. What I mean here in this specific hadith, the hadith of 60 feet in heaven, we know it contradicts reality. It cannot be a report about reality. And Allah's Messenger do not lie. We know that the Christian point of view that because of the sin, death came in the world, and when they found the fossils, they were untouchable, and all these living beings were living in the time past, and then when Adam sinned, all of them died all to sudden. We know this is all myth. That's not true. Death is a part of creation since the beginning. He created life and death from the beginning like that. It's the system of the universe from the beginning. It's not because of a sin or anything like that. So the same myth like the Christians is this Jewish and Christian myth. All these related with death and rotting of meat and the length of inheritance and the lives of 1,000 years and so on, they attribute to various people. The only life of around 1,000 years which is correct is the one for Noah. And this must have been miraculous. Most likely it was never for any other human. So all these narration you find in the books.
So Musa as well?
Musa has lived maybe 80 years or 70 years. I don't know how much.
So the miracles of the previous prophets, where do they fit within this definition?
They fit.
But where? Exactly.
They fit. They are absolutely rational because we have a report about them which is reliable from the one who tells the truth, subhanahu wa ta'ala, and is capable of doing it. That's the only way to prove them. There's no way. Or seeing them or having a tawatur about them.
That's not logical though, is it?
That's logical. This definition of
logical by our definition, but it's not logical.
No, by necessity of reason, because the question is that, for example, the claim of the Quran that Musa threw the stick and it turned into a real snake.
But that's only logical if I believe in the Quran.
No, assuming we have proven that. Is it impossible in itself? It's not impossible. It is physically not possible that a stick turns into a snake.
Yeah.
But sticks are possible, snakes are possible, all are created by Allah. He is capable in that moment to let the stick disappear and its material to be transformed into a snake, or a snake coming out of nothingness. This is not the normal course of events in the universe, but this is within the divine capability. This is not rationally impossible. It's not logically impossible. It's not contradicting any of the logic absolute.
No.
It contradicts the natural law, yes. It breaks the natural law, yes. The normal physical law which we learn in physics and chemistry. If someone tells us that without any evidence, we tell him, stop, you are talking about rubbish. It can't be. But we know here.
So we have to be clear, it doesn't contradict Allah's logic. That's what.
Not part of Allah's logic. This Allah's power is capable of doing that. Normally, He doesn't do that in the reverse. He does it in certain exceptional situation as a miracle for His prophets. So as He will profit with it. There is no logical inconsistency there. The only things which atheists usually come is say we have reports about these things, which is more reasonable to assume that the one who reported are mentally deranged or obsessed or crazy or have been deceived, or that the physical laws have been violated. It's easier to assume that they have been deceived. That's the normal argument. I agree with that.
Yeah, David Hume usually says that, what's it called?
It's easier to assume that these people are lying or
what would you rather believe, that a meek Jew lied, or all the laws of the universe were suspended and a woman became...
But he never said the suspension of the universe is impossible for a divine being if he exists. So you see, that's the point. It's not impossible. It is remote. But we have either eyewitnesses, if you are eyewitness by yourself, or you have evidences from another source. Now, with the case of the Quran reports, we are supposed to have proven the veracity of the Quran elsewhere. That was supposed to be done. Based on that, assuming that it's divine. Otherwise, if you don't assume it's divine, you should reject all of what is in it. To scream, you have to reject. It will be irrational for you to assume, but it's based on the assumption it is a divine revelation, and that the wording there are telling the truth. And this metaphorical explanation should not be assumed unless you are forced to. And there's nothing which forcing us to say that the turning of the stick into a snake in the case of Musa is metaphorical or anything. It is described a reality which the people have supposed to be seen at that time. The splitting of the sea, the people passed through the splitting, according to the report. According to Bani Israel's report, by the way. But considering this is a myth and Muhammad adopted that myth, okay, he's not a messenger, but if we prove that he's a messenger on independent other grounds, then we have proven that this is the reality. This is the truth, based on revelation. But the proof is there. This is rationality. That's the way rationality works. It's not rationality, it works only if physics and chemistry agree. This is only a limited scientific knowledge. Not rationality.
Okay, one sheikh I was listening to, he said, you may be able to even, now there's another grounds that's ethical and moral. We prove lots of things on ethical and moral basis. He said, let's say we prove everything scientifically, everything logically, rational, this and that, and even based on, Allah's logic or whatever you want to call this. But at the end of the day, how do you prove, or how do you make someone understand that in the ethical moral argument that concubines as an example? So for example, let's say you tell them that Allah's logic is actually correct. Women's status is elevated in Islam in a certain sense. It's not really, there's no demeaning or any of this. So, but what if someone says, a sheikh said that I tried to prove this to a guy, and after 3 years he finally said, you know what, I believe that Muslims treat women the best. So he said, he came back to the point, what about the concubines? He said, even if you prove the 4 wives, or you make them understand this, or you make them understand that, how do you come back to the concubine argument? Where does this fit in the rational argument, or where does this fit in the logic?
I'll tell you where it fits. The whole work he does 3 years is wasting his time. He should not have a
that's what he said also.
He should went to
Islam, not to...
Went to the Quran, is it from Allah? The prophetic statements about the future which have materialized, and prove that he's a messenger of Allah there. And then Allah has legislated whatever he wants. He is the absolute sovereign. Any discussion of this point will bring reason down into collapsing. Because the moment you argue with Allah about any of his decisions, either creative or legislative, reason is gone.
Okay, so let me ask you a question.
You know that.
You're right. I agree. Logically.
So the way he approached is wrong. So he opened the door for the devil by his own mistake.
He said that. He said I should have actually just preached Islam. Do you believe this? Do you believe this? He said that after. But the point is that why don't most people adhere or convert to Islam based on what you're saying? Based on this logical...
There's some people like that, some people other ways. Everyone has his own approach. Everyone has his own approach.
But it doesn't work necessarily on everyone.
I'm not saying it has to work on everyone. I say this is a way which is absolutely unattackable. There are other ways. Not everyone is a rationalist. Some people will say, really. For example, if you ask those people who have suffered someone with the family killed, they will tell you really the Islamic injunction that the family has the right to ask for blood is the good one, and they have exercised that. An Israeli guy and his brother was killed, and he insisted on execution, and they were sending depeches back and forth. The English said, no, this I will not fear peace of heart until this man is executed. I don't want to have a diya. Another guy, a case of also an Englishman whose little was killed, he accepted diya. A third one like this. So when it comes to that, they feel this fulfills certain human needs. So you could argue, look, this legislation is coming from someone who knows what is in the depth of the heart. If you were really under the test, don't listen to the liberals who blubbering. The moment their own son killed, they will be really grieving and feeling it. They are just talking philosophical. That's the one who knows how you are created internally, know how your blood was. This is a good argument to bring the people closer. It makes sense. In the case of qisas, it makes good sense because the Quran says it is life for you. So it gives you some of the hikmah. In the case of khamr and maisir, it's also clear because this will reduce the evil of khamr, the disputes, the fighting, the wife beating, etc. That makes sense. And Allah said it clearly. So you show him the benefit and the aspect of that. The prohibition of any extramarital relations, etc., meaning protection of the family, protection from sexual diseases, those are good things. That's no doubt. There's a goodness in that. I'm not denying this. And many people will be accessible, especially in modern times, in the last 2-3 centuries, people have been captured by the secular rationality, which is an immediate rationality. What's the immediate benefit? What's the immediate harm? If you go in a higher philosophical level, say, listen, we have a hadith saying, and we know it's by necessity of reason, that the whole dunya until Yawm al-Qiyamah is not worth in the eye of Allah the wing of a ba'udah. It's actually just a metaphorical expression because it actually should be nil. It should not be even a wing of a ba'udah because the akhirah is infinite, the dunya is finite, and the finite compared to infinite is equal zero. So it's not even a wing of a ba'udah, but just to bring it to the common man's understanding, we say a wing of a mosquito. So all things are directed for in Allah's side towards akhirah, not towards dunya. And dunya is just a necessary stage in which he wants people who choose him to be chosen for akhirah. That's all. And the rest will be dumped in hellfire. So forget about concubines, forget about all of these things, think about akhirah. That's it. That's all consideration. And that's it. He has no other consideration. But mercifully, he knows that you are limited and you are weak, so gave you some injunction which is quite nice for you and make your life a little bit more comfortable. That's it. But this is just pure mercy because he's a kind God. That's all. Otherwise, he could have been harsh. Ask you, from every 2 children, the second one will be slaughtered. Can you say no? He's the owner. I give you children. Number 1 goes alive. Number 2, whatever it is, maybe a boy, and you go to boys for example, society. The first one is a girl, damn it. The second one is a boy. Slaughter that one. Can you say no? No. You can't say no. And that's the reason I objected, for example, I said that in the book of Tawheed several times, and also to the Shabab in the Halaqah. I object severely to Ibn Qayyim discussing that Adam is superior to the devil and so on, and discussing mud is nicer because it's cold and it grows plants while the fire is bad and destructive, all this discussion. I say, I even use a nasty word. If Allah ordered you to make sujood to a pile of, not saying what is it, do you have the liberty to say no? No, you don't have. So it's not that Adam is superior to Iblis or Iblis. It's Allah commands that has to be obeyed. Even if you told Iblis this is the pile of dung here, you make sujood to it. Yes, Master, I have to do so. I have, because you are the ultimate. Your command is the ultimate.
But the Quran says that the shaitan said was takbar. He felt pride.
Yeah, that's what has motivated him. But that's not the reason that Ibn Qayyim studies 20 pages about that mud is better than fire. That's what it disturbed me. I know that Iblis was arrogant. I am better than him. I'm not going to make sujood. Allah did not answer him because very clear.
Sure.
Allah, if we would argue and say, you are better than him, yes, but I am better than you infinite many times. Why is my command not respected? That's it. That's the issue.
Sure. Is it?
No, this is deficient. This is the secular rationality. We say, if we do that, then we have more income. If we do that, then we avoid syphilis and diseases. That's a good argument for doing things to look next day or next hour. But for the one who looks in eternity, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we want you to look this way, but mercifully, He taking your limitation into consideration and go with you, pampering you like a baby. But that's it. He's just doing it for pampering. He's not obliged to do it. He can be harsh, he can be gentle. Yeah, he prohibited himself for certain things, like to be unjust. Yes, he prohibited himself to give an order of fahisha or evilness. Yeah, that's all of that. It has its own grounding, but ultimately, he's the ultimate sovereign.
So what if someone argues from that point of view, that law is unjust, so it's contradicting his...
No, he has to prove that's unjust. Unjust meaning the only definition of injustice is that you punish the non-guilty one, and this is nowhere in the Islamic law and the revelation. Nowhere that you punish the non-guilty one, or that you, after promising someone a reward for his work, you don't give him his loan. This will be unjust. That's the only definition of fundamental. The so-called absolute justice is just a fiction in their imagination. The only absolute justice in the world is that he is the sovereign, everyone is his slave, and they should be worshipping. And he is the one suffering injustice.
You've just given 2 examples of absolute justice.
Which one?
Those 2 that you just gave.
This is the abstaining from injustice. That's all. He cannot punish the innocent one. He can. I mean, power-wise, he could, but he's aloof about that because of his holiness. He doesn't oppress anyone. Yes. But what they call absolute justice, that he must balance things in a certain way, and the only way to get the people of the inherited sin by slaughtering his own son. This sounds even outrageous. So his own son has to suffer for the rest of the others. This is the real injustice there, where they claim there's absolute justice. This is all nonsense. It doesn't work. But oppression, yes, he doesn't oppress. He is not unjust to anybody.
Doc, sorry. Is it also true that some of the common sense we use is based on science? That science in itself cannot be fact?
No, I don't know what's the meaning of this question exactly. Well-established scientific facts are there, and they should be taken into consideration in all aspects. But if you look at them, they are neutral. They don't dictate you one way or another. Like, for example, markets are the way they are. Yeah. And if you give some money for investment, he will be earning money, and you can think because of that I should be by the way I'm giving him my money, I should have some right to get some money. Yeah, have a percentage, usually, or interest. Sounds very rational. That's the way the markets work with this. If the interest rate is low, then there's an excitement in the market and more investment, and if it is high, it will squeeze the inflation. This is the law. Islamic law says you cannot lend money for interest. If you want to make money, you have to become in a participating trade. That's the way to do it, not this way. Yes, you have to, because nobody will give his money for anybody else as a gift, but you go as a partner. That's the way to work. The other way is excluded for whatever divine reason, and obviously there's objective reasons for that. We have seen that recently, what the reason will be, what usury will accumulated over decades will end in. But independent of that, that's an injunction. It does not mean that the fact that money, if it's given for investment, should earn some money for the owner. This is the fact. But how it earns, what is the technicality of earning, what's the contractual obligation, that's for the Sharia to establish. This is not obligatory on Allah to take that into consideration. The people what they claim, the people of interest, that is the simplest way and the most straightforward way is lending for interest. That's true. It is the simplest way. It is simpler. It's easier for you as a money owner to give money, a contract at the end of the year, give me 7%. I am happy with that. We'll do with money whatever you want, as long as you have security or trust in his capability, etc. With the usual due diligence is done whatever you think it is with. That's the way, and this seems to be very rational. But the Sharia, Allah is not obliged to take that into consideration. Maybe there's another higher consideration He wants there. Maybe He wants you to participate with your brother in gain and loss. If he gains more, you gain more, and if he loses, you lose it. Why should you be protected? Except in the extreme case of bankruptcy and so on, where even the securities are no good, or something like that. Why should? And we know that accumulation of riba, the result is that you have a class which is rich for centuries ongoing, and class which are not rich for centuries ongoing. Money is not going around, but independent of that, Allah is not obliged to take that. So I don't want to mean scientific facts. That's concerning math.
There's a hadith which says that the thunder or the lightning worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Oh yeah, this is.
But scientifically, it's just a negative and positive charge.
So this is not worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Maybe worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Maybe the discharge is the tasbih of the thunder. I don't think this is, because obviously Allah said you don't recognize the tasbih, the rotating of the electron around the atom. I would say this is tasbih Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Subhanallah, the one who made the system so that I can circulate instead of falling with the nucleus. Because we know, because of quantum conditions, electron is not falling with the nucleus. Otherwise it would have fallen.
That's what we've established as a general disclaimer, is that it doesn't have to be logical. according to you and I, according to our logic.
Not maybe in the limited scientific way.
For the trees or the rocks to talk to Rasul, it's not going to fit our logic. But there's some hikmah ultimately that's.
But yeah, I agree with you. But but there is an ultimate logic. What you're saying is that British
dictated by Allah.
Yes, but I don't agree that there's an ultimate logic. I believe there's an ultimate decree.
There are logical absolutes. Hang on a minute. There are such things as logical absolute. Like, what's it called? Something can't be right and wrong at the same time.
Things like
a thing is A is
true.
A
point is, even if there wasn't
the law of identity or something like
that. But even if there wasn't, it wouldn't matter because Allah's decree. Whether the
Allah's existence being necessarily existing is the absolute truth in itself. And all of the truths emanate from yes.
I think what Dr. Moss is saying is that the logic is here is that you believe that Muhammad is a message from God. Right. You believe that he brought the Quran.
It's a set of things in order to get you to the
but that order, and you believe that Allah gave the Quran.
Because you've already accepted all these things.
That itself is logic. Right. So if you're accepting that that's the logic,
I get it.
And you're saying that
it's the premises which you can build on it certain and well-established knowledge.
Maybe I think if you use the term an internal logic, I think it's a very explicit logic. If that's the case.
So for example, from the linguistic necessity and that the Quran is eloquent and Allah is not lying. He said, for example, about Muhammad يُحِلُّ لَهُمُ الطَّيِّبَاتُ وَيُحَرِّمُ He makes permissible or lawful for them the good things. From that we conclude, it cannot be they make permissible for them the permissible thing. This will be empty statement. So the things can be described as good by themselves. Now what meaning of good by themselves? In a certain universe, who made it this way? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So by His creative decree, He made things good. Meaning befitting for the certain functionality. Like for example, the apple is good for you health-wise.
Sorry,
it's beneficial for you.
You've lost me. Can you just start all over?
No, again, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Muhammad salam, one of his characteristics that He permits for them
permissible.
He made for them lawful the good things. That's the wording of the Quran. Some people say the good things are the permissible things. This means Allah has done talking rubbish, saying He will make them permissible things, the permissible thing. That does not make any sense. So to make sense for this sentence, to make it a characteristic of the Prophet who's worth maintaining in the Quran from Allah, not from a writer. Another writer will make such blunders, but not Allah. Then the goodness of an item is a characteristic of the item, independent from Allah's permission to make it lawful or unlawful. But what is meaning of goodness now again? We have to be very cautious. It is like, let's take for example the apple. The apple is good for you, health-wise, taste-wise, smell-wise. How come it's good for you? Any absolute there? No. It is by the creative decree of Allah. In this universe, it's created this way, so that it is desiring the attribute good medically, good smelling-wise, good feeling-wise. That Muhammad is having a Sharia which permits the goods is an extra bonus, because in previous Sharia some goods were prohibited. So Allah is not obliged even what by His creative decree made good to make it permissible for you. He can very well say this is good, but it's prohibited for you. You just shut up and obey. And He did that for Bani Israel. So we know the concept of good and evil is separate from halal and haram. But this is by Allah's creative decree, and this is by Allah's legislative decree, and they synchronize only by Allah's will. In this Sharia, mercifully, they synchronize almost 100% or 100%. In previous Sharia, did not synchronize 100%. The Quran is clearly telling you clearly that Bani Israel, they have been prohibited good things which were permitted for their grandfathers.
But then Isa alayhi salam came down and said...
Some of them. We're not going to define points of Sharia, but the fact that he did it is absolute. There's no doubt, unless he's lying in the Quran. So he has the right and the sovereignty and doesn't contradict any of his divine attribute or holiness that he, despite if he made it good, but he legislated thus avoid it. For why? Whatever reason. In the case one says as a punishment for their transgression, but the punishment should be only for the bad ones, but even the good ones were encompassed in this punishment. What can you say? It's not a punishment in that sense. It came this way because they started transgressing and he legislated harder on them. But the legislation is obligatory to everyone. So it's not an injustice that they make a legislation common for everyone, although it is targeting few people who deserve really to be harshly treated, but it's treating the whole ummah. That's no problem because he's the sovereign. Sovereignty is the ultimate consideration.
Sheikh, going back to the...
It's not a punishment in the genuine sense, otherwise it would be injustice. The punishment in the genuine sense of Yawm al-Qiyamah is only for the transgressor, the one who committed sin, not for the one who did not commit sin. That's different. So it can't be punishment in that sense, but it be like because of their transgression we became harsh on them and made very strict injunction in that Sharia generally.
Sheikh, going back to the, I think there's the original question right at the beginning of the topic, we were talking about Aql over Naql, and saying it's been adopted from the Greeks, etc. But
I think this is all a historic confusion, and it was back and forth. And I think the modern philosophy since Kant and Hume and maybe starting really with Leibniz and so on, and Newton. Newton is also have contribution philosophy besides science and astronomy. From that generation, started the people recognizing that most of these metaphysical studies are futile and not bring anything forward. To the level that has been completely deserted, and we have an extreme reaction, pendulum swinging to the other end. People like Hume coming say anything which is not scientific is not acceptable, which is again an absolute mistake.
But one of our parts.
But now things are swinging back to the reasonable way, and people are recognizing that science is a respectable area of research based on.
Did it have a negative impact though on the Ummah? Significant negative?
No, I think that the recent development, the last 300 years, is absorbed correctly. It should have an excellent impact on the Ummah. We should have done that. Unfortunately, Islamic. We should have done this development ourselves, but it is the peak of Islamic development reached a certain time and then started declining. And the Khilafah Uthmaniyya was more of military power than really intellectual leadership. It did have some. It's not as negative, purely militarily.
So it's philosophical, because like you mentioned with like Armenian, these people, their Sharia and their on the way on how they define us from the fit was much stronger.
Yeah, that's but it did not develop further to go in Ilm al-Kalam and continue, and then we have backlash that the state was concerned mostly
to draw the line, isn't it? It's a very blurry. It's
a complex historical development which is very difficult now. But I think with the modern philosophy and modern science, we have a very good start if we start from here and forget about all of that. I just dump it in the rubbish of history and start with a proper rationality based on revelation, science, and so on, putting everything in its right place. Then we should not have any problem.
And most of these philosophy itself, should we really go into philosophy when we've got this is another thing that people talk about, which is you've got rationality.
All the current philosophy is philosophy of knowledge, which is good in itself. So there's still some disputes about rationalist, idealist, materialist, but plenty of have been achieved there. There are old issues or well-established issues of philosophy and logic, like ontology, which is needed and should be respected and developed further and cleaned. We have the philosophy of morality. That's also plenty of studies possible there. I think we can contribute to that. And then we have philosophy of science and these things, which is very good.
So philosophy is good as long as
the old metaphysics is gone.
Yeah, but can I just ask, philosophy, is it right to say that philosophy is good as long as it agrees with reason? As long as it doesn't contradict reason.
Yeah, which is with the proper philosophy, not the mythical philosophy of the Greek and that.
But
in time past that was what is available. Yeah.
All philosophy is trying to be rational. Anyway.
Exactly. Because philosophy is the metaphysics of the unknown, isn't it?
No. Hang on.
Let me subdivide.
For example, you will have epistemology, okay? You'll have metaphysics, right?
No,
and everybody's got their own version of what is metaphysical.
No, I would exclude metaphysics except the ontology and the types of.
How do you make that decision, though, that you would exclude everything except ontology?
No. Except metaphysics. Metaphysics is not accessible. It has already proven that's not accessible.
Because it's not rational. It doesn't.
Whatever you say there essentially is irrational. That's the achievement of modern philosophy and Kant. This is the biggest achievement of Kant. He maybe went a little bit overboard and need correction and so on. So the pendulum is swinging back and forth, and the development there. Yes, I agree on that. But that's the way to go. All other things can be discussed because they concern history, concern things like that. All of that. For example, Kant went to idealism to an extreme, not to that extreme, but the generation after him went to the extreme, to the level that, for example, there's I think it's a joke, possibly because it's historical. That what's the name of the biggest philosopher of the dialectic? After Kant, I will remember the name. Anyway, he's a famous philosopher. Anyway, he was saying logic dictates that there are only 7 planets. Because the number 7 and so on. This is again metaphysical nonsense. So one student in the class said, but her professor said, we know that there's another planet. The reality shows that there are 9. At the time they have already, I think, trans Jupiter and so on. That's the Tatsachen, the reality, that's in German. He said, umso schlimmer for the Tatsachen. Even worse for the facts. So my theory is correct, your facts are wrong. His name will come in my mind. So that's excessive because it went to extreme of idealism, thinking that ideas enforce on reality, not the reality affects ideas. That's extreme in every philosophical endeavor will have. But the reason for this philosopher to go to such extreme is that he has no control from wahi. The only wahi he has is the Christian wahi, which is faulty, and at that time already the criticism of the Christian books and the Jewish books was quite advanced, and there were very many question marks about the historic validity and reliability. So the only really wahi which he could refer to was very questionable and very weakened and highly obscure,
corrupt as well,
and very corrupt. So he could not really. And I said for Europe until now, and maybe down the road for years to come, Islam is the enemy and human nature, so they don't take from your enemy anything.
But what was the benefit of all these philosophical learnings and understandings? For example, the Sahaba never delved in it.
Yeah, they didn't need it. It's not needed.
What does that
They
mean?
weren't exposed to it.
What does that mean? They didn't need it. Need as in what? Need as in morally, physically, ethically?
No, they didn't need it. They were able to manage their life without it. It's enough. If you have the revelation, it's enough for you.
Include without.
You should recognize that the Sahaba were the Prophet, they saw by themselves the miracles they have for them. It was tawatur. So they didn't need any further evidence. The evidence they saw by themselves. They experienced it in their own body. And the next generation had immediate reporting for...
What is the use of philosophy?
Right.
Because, look, I'll only read about philosophy just to refute another atheist philosopher. Just so that I don't get caught out.
Yeah.
But I don't see any...
That's you read that because of that. That's the reason people studied. Originally, people said it will bring some more truth to them, more knowledge about areas which they don't have access to. Because human by their own nature are having a longing to gain knowledge, and gaining knowledge is very sweet and gives a very deep satisfaction. It's a very rational sweetness. You feel it if you, for example, prove a mathematical theory, even if it's prove by someone else, but if you can do it independently, you feel such a sweetness, such a pleasure of unbelievable level. So it has its attractiveness, and there's no problem in that. The problem with the old philosophy is that really it was mythical, the metaphysical part. And that metaphysical part where the people indulged because they said what is the most respectable and worthy object of study is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So let us study Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is clearly not what the way of the Quran. The Quran told them, and the Sunnah tells them, avoid thinking about Allah, think about the universe. Appreciate that. About Allah, take knowledge as given linguistically in a simple, straightforward way without going into fine points, because nobody will be able to appreciate
but all the great scholars said to avoid.
But they insisted to do that.
Yeah, all the great...
Yeah, Imam Shafi, Imam Ahmad, Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Shafi said the people of Kalam should be dragged through the streets and beaten.
I know, but I think this is the fatwa of which is not
Because most of the scholars of Kalam, the ones who delved into it, even like Ghazali and Fakhruddin Arazi, he himself, Fakhruddin Arazi, many times said that, I delved into it so much that I
know that. The reason, as I said, because the starting point was not good. That is the historical situation. The historical situation should not dictate principles of Sharia. Studying all these things, if it would have been studied the correct way, starting from Quran and Sunnah properly, it would have been done much more properly. Unfortunately, it was not done this way.
No, but Imam mentioned a good point, is that, for example, like you said, okay, why the Sahaba didn't go into they were simple people, but they had the revelation in front of them, fair enough, but they weren't exposed to it. It was only when they started going into other lands.
It's during the Abbasid period.
They had no choice.
The Abbasid period, really, when...
Yeah, then that is settled, and then there will be luxury. This is the luxury of thinking.
About Aristotle.
And the problem was that
Sahabas were very
also many people do not see some history. Like, for example, let me tell you some history.
That's not true, because when Umar bin Khattab was reading about the Bible and stuff, Rasulullah came and told him to throw it.
Yeah, we know. We have discussed that in the book of Tawheed.
So those books came into the lands and it was known, and Christianity was known at that time.
Christianity.
So if it was a matter of expanding into lands, only
I don't think it was expanding into lands, but when it was the Abbasid Khalifa, if you want to call it that, it was Persian Empire essentially, and Persians had adopted a lot of these.
No, what happened, I think, is people are unjust to Ma'mun historically. What happened is that the Shia movements, the Batini movements, led by the Ismaili, was getting stronger and stronger. And a few decades later, maybe a century later, they started their state in Egypt, Fatimi. They were campaigning very strongly, and they were referring to that all knowledge comes from the Imam. And all knowledge is metaphorical, and the Imam explained what is it. And the Quran has a hidden and an internal part. That was their campaign. And they were influenced by Eastern philosophy and so on. That was the campaign. He needed to confront that with a rational approach, because it's a philosophical approach. Earlier, the earlier Khulafa before Ma'mun, they tried to get Ahl al-Hadith and Ahl al-Fiqh to respond to that. They were not qualified. The only people who were able to respond to that are essentially Mu'tazila, the people of Kalam. But then it grew out of proportion in such a level that a stronger counter movement was needed. So Ma'mun tried to start a rationalist approach against that. In both ways. Rationalist approach by translating philosophy and encouraging that, and a practical approach by adopting some Imams as bait, and even when one of them was almost appointed his appointee.
But even before that, wasn't there an incident even before this when Hassan al-Basri was in the masjid and someone came and said, if I commit this sin when I'm in and out of Islam, and then Wasil bin Atta stood up and said, actually you're in a middle place now between Islam and
that's the starting of the Mu'tazila. So they started even, you see, with Islamic issues, and that with the metaphysics, and they needed to settle this question. So when people are settled, they are not continuously in the warfare, there will be these issues, and these issues will be developed. There's no escape from them. This is for any nation, there seems to be like a historical necessity. Only that historical situation, that the available material was that, and unfortunately, like for example, one scholar said, until Shafi'i has come, before that, we were cursing the people of Ra'i. That's fiqh. So that's nothing to do with it. And they were cursing us. Until Shafi'i came and clarified in the Risala of Usul al-Fiqh. So that, and you know how negative they were toward Abu Hanifa. How many negative comments are about Abu Hanifa in Muhaddithin. And most of it's biased, but just based on extremely biased. That unfortunately, if you read it carefully between the line, many of it is biased.
very partisan stuff.
It's very, very. Abu Hanifa is a man of great righteousness, of great piety, no doubt about that, and highest level of devotion, and only the people who know him personally, like Sufyan al-Thawri, knew how to appreciate him, appreciate his capabilities.
But Sufyan al-Thawri was a mudallis, yeah? Mm-hmm. And whenever he was ashamed when he quoted, when he used to hide Abu Hanifa, basically.
Yeah, because he knows that people have the hadith. Because he knows the hadith. Yeah. No, not weak. Not necessarily
Abu Hanifa was weak, according to
that's what they claim, but actually he was hiding. No.
Muhaddithin consider Abu Hanifa to be weak.
No. Sufyan al-Thawri knows Abu Hanifa better than them because he's a Kufi and he knows him personally. The problem with that the people rejected Abu Hanifa because Ra'i, so Sufyan needed to make that least to cover him. But Sufyan is more pious than to narrate of someone he doesn't trust. Unless he tell you, for example, he went to list few hadith from Jabir al-Ju'fi, said Jabir al-Ju'fi told me and he's a liar. He said that clearly with his name. But I know in this hadith he's not lying because I know there's other corroborating evidence. You may accept that from Sufyan, you may leave it. This is a man like anybody else, but a great scholar. So Sufyan has the great piety not to really to make that or someone deliberately knowing will be lying about the Prophet. This is no way Sufyan will function. But I mean, he knew that people. For example, once he narrated things from Hassan ibn Salih, and some people in his circle stood up saying, you narrate from this man, say, what's the wrong with Hassan ibn Salih? Respect him and say, he, and he pointed to his neck. He does not mind that the sword will be pulled against Muslims. He advocated rebelling against oppressed ruler by the sword. Hassan Salih is from this school. He's like Zaidi. And they were intimidating Sufyan, but Sufyan did not bother about that because Hassan Salih is beyond this level. He is not involved in fiqh, he is just pure narration and ibadah. And Hassan Salih and his mother and his brother were dividing the night in 3 parts. When the mother died, they divided it in 2 halves. Then his brother died, he was praying all night long because he said this house should have night prayer continuously. And he was praying all night, so he was not involved in Rai or any other issues. But that issue that he was believing that it's permissible to rebel against the words with the sword was enough for many to intimidate Sufyan. How can we learn from this man? But Sufyan did not bother about them. So they were intimidating. The students can intimidate the Sheikh in your halaq. And we cannot exclude that in the halaq there are some spies and madkhali were sitting there who are spying for the government like nowadays. Yeah, you cannot exclude. But they can intimidate you. They intimidated many other people. Some people stopped narrating certain hadith because they were intimidated. We know that there are many examples like that. So you cannot say. So anyway, that's concerning Ra'i. So the conflict was so big that the people of hadith were so involved in just narrations and forgetting that their time is not the time of the Prophet ﷺ, nor the first generation, nor the third generation. Now it's a time where a nation has been established in earth. Hundreds of millions or maybe tens of millions, I think hundreds of millions of Muslims are living in the world, living with them Jews, living with their philosophers. They have to learn more skills. They were adamant, they don't want them. So when the earlier Khulafa, when, for example, Indian delegations and philosophical delegation came from India to meet the Khalifa and bringing certain arguments and counter-arguments against Islam, he asked the people of Hadith, and when the people of Hadith responded, he asked them, they responded narrating a Hadith or a Quran. These people do not believe in Hadith or Quran. We have to start with something more elementary. That's all what we have. So he was said, and then it is narrated that Abu Ja'far said, there is no one defending Islam except those people who are narrating Quran and Sunnah to a Hindu. It doesn't work this way. You have to choose other kinds of argument. You have to choose other kinds of arguments for these people.
So should we or should we not study philosophy for this?
I would not advise everyone. I would advise rather to have some solid natural sciences and maybe mathematics and logic. And if needed, then what is ever needed for philosophy. Because plenty of it is just esoteric studies about details of theory of knowledge and fine points, which may be not needed. Metaphysics is gone. So what is there really to study? I would say the most important thing is logic and ontology. And some solid epistemology.
Sorry, can you refresh my memory? Ontology,
being and the state modes of being, necessary being, contingent being, events, things like that, and their relation with their possibility, impossibility, these fundamental things.
Because it seems like to me that now that a lot of the people coming out and throwing these arguments, they're just reviving the arguments of old.
No, who are reviving the arguments?
Well, as in like these atheists and these philosophical people.
No, they have added some scientific input and they polish their arguments. They are not stupid. It would be stupid to think these atheists are stupid. They are much better. They are developed than the atheists in time past. But what they are doing is to show you cannot prove anything. So it is, if it is not provable, then we are at liberty not to believe. Because if you have no proof, how can you say it is rationally compared to any rational being? That's essentially the secular argument. No religion can be proven to be right. It's a matter of choice. So in a society, the state should not bother about any religion, should think only about running the affairs, day-to-day affairs, immediate benefit, and so on. So the state will not step and prohibit alcohol unless it becomes really a rampant social issue. Otherwise, if you want to abstain, that's your choice. That's the philosophy of the secular state. And the philosophical argument behind that is that you have no other way because nothing can be proven. If it can be proven, and if everyone falls in the corner, then rational human beings must be compelled to stick to what is rationally proven. But there's nothing rationally proven, so it's a matter of choices and political. It's more like making relativism absolute. Everything is relative. It's a matter of choice.
Sure.
Well, they contradict themselves in practical life, yes, but still, that's why you can attack them.
Sheikh, do you think the scientific advancements that the Abbasids and the Andalusians made was due to the study of philosophy, mainly?
In part. It has input. It is denying that is just denying history.
Yeah.
I know that some so-called Salafi are adamant to them, but they are stuck in things, and it's what they usually.
There is a benefit. There is
the argument even Hizb al-Tahrir, for something about the ilm al-kalam and so on, quite negative attitude. I think it's going a bit to the extremes. Yes, it has negative effect, but it is because of historical circumstances which we've studied them. You see, it could have been better, but unfortunately, history ran aground this way.
So, is it then safe to then just conclude for the circle that as long as somebody is well grounded in their deen, they understand the role of the revelation,
And also understand really what rationality means, and do not be hijacked by that science is all rationality. No, rationality is beyond science. That commandments should be having an immediate benefit, like this is common now between Muslims when they discuss about we should have big talk about this worm and so on.
Isn't that metaphysics though? When you said, you said ration is beyond science.
No, I mean rationality is not only scientific rationality; it's beyond.
So beyond
meaning that that's the principle who says science is valid is higher than science and before science. That's what I mean. If someone says everything is gained from experience and no knowledge is outside experience, which experiment prove you that your general statement is valid? You don't have. Then we go in infinite regression.
So that's metaphysical then?
Yeah, not metaphysical in the sense the divine entity. This metaphysical in the sense is behind physics, yes?
So this
is the essential part of metaphysics.
These are all
epistemology, certain part of epistemology is metaphysical in that sense. But not metaphysical in the limited sense that the divine entity and its attribute. That's what when I say metaphysical, I mean in the narrow meaning. That's revelation is more than enough than that. But metaphysical in the sense that the rationality and the reality is beyond only what can be seen by science, yes, absolutely.
Would you say there's moral rationality as well?
Could be. I'm doubting that because as just I said about permissibility and non-permissibility and good and evil is better understood in the framework of what's creative action and legislative action. That's better. You have to get a divine issue first settled. Then rationality can be studied. Otherwise, will just be practical social rationality.
Isn't that meta-ethics now you're going into?
Yeah. This is okay. That has to be studied.
So for you to say metaphysics is...
I'm not minding all the physics. I say that part of metaphysics, the concept of the divine entity is most likely not accessible. Should be rejected. That's all that is. That's it. If we avoid that, and that was all what they were working with in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th Islamic century. 90% work was in the divine entity. As if they have no universe to study, nothing to do here, and no medicine to do, and no agriculture to develop, and so on. People stop there and go there, do whatever you can and leave what you don't can. But it's so attractive, and someone start there, someone is angry and rebut him, and third one rebuts, and fourth one come, and then one declare takfir, and they'll say it's not takfir, and it goes centuries like that. That's it. It's just a historic course which could have been going a certain way has been diverted into the wrong way. Maybe if someone could say, I wouldn't say it, but let's say it in a shocking language. So we could say, actually, it's a mistake of Umar. Why? Because at the time Umar, they found books in the palace of Kisra and books in Egypt, and they wrote to Umar what to do with the books. So we have the book of Allah, we don't may ban them. That's the narration act. I don't know if it's valid or not. Not the Library of Alexandria. That's banned well before this. Christian banned it. So that's not true that he banned libraries, but certain books which were in the royal library. If it's true, the narration. If that's true, if it started at the time of Sahaba, the Sahaba would have been qualified much better to deal with that than the later generation. They would have directed the action in the right direction.
Because they have the right grounding.
Like for example, the Sahaba in their time, actually they were, Abdullah bin Amr bin As and others, they were actually studying the old books of the Jews and Christians, and they have them in scrolls, and they were even having study sessions in that, which disappeared later. If that discipline would have continued, we would have a critical Bible science long ago, but that died out. The next generation were not happy with that. Like for example, they wrote to Abdullah bin Amr al-As, and he said, okay, I will have a session, so we don't want from your books there, we want from what the Messenger of Allah said. Now, Abdullah bin Amr al-As is also keen to tell you what the Messenger of Allah said, but sometimes you need to know what the previous nations knew, what they didn't know, and then you record it properly, and then you start studying it critically. So they were foregoing that, so they didn't want that. They were forcing him not to, don't from your books. Get from what the Messenger of Allah has said, which is good. It shows a good intention, but does not show that it's someone who is keen to know what the Messenger of Allah said, but has forgotten that in history there's still hundreds of years to come until Yawm al-Qiyamah. You'll be interacting with nations, you will be interacting with Jews, you will be interacting with Christians, you will have many other issues to settle also. Yeah, you see, so you could say even the time of Sahaba, it started there. If they started really with these things, they would have.
But the issue that Rasulullah told Umar not to read it was just immediately a few days after the Hijrah. But later at the time, there are hadith Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam say that we can take from Israeliyat as long as we don't take ahkam.
Yes.
We can read it, but we can't use it as an evidence.
I know this is a very confusing issue, and the scholars have been confused, but because we are very late, we stop here. But go to the section about if Musa would have been alive, he would not have any other option to follow me in the book of Tawheed. You have the English translation. It's a bad translation, I know. Go there and read. You will see how much misunderstanding the scholars had about these issues. There is a host of misunderstanding. It's actually 3 different issues which many scholars mixed together. The moment the 3 issues are separated, inshallah, it will enlighten your head like the sun rising after a dark, rainy night. And we may make a session for that and we read it because there are 3 separate issues. They are clearly distinct, and the hadith is so pointed, it's unbelievable. If you this one by itself you could say is a sign of prophethood. It's no way anyone, which even up to Ibn Hajar time, they were confused and not knowing to put them all of them together. But if you put them together and read the wording exactly according to the Arabic language, you will be surprised how could people miss that, and how could this illiterate man have invented that. All of them fit exactly in a spot, provided you classify them properly. So read that, inshallah, and then we'll have another session for that. No, this is not true. It is not because of ahkam or non-ahkam. It's another issue altogether. 3 different issues. There. So leave it for that. Read that, you will be jubilant. I think it will clarify. Because I was also confused. I read what Ibn Hajar said in Fath al-Bari and elsewhere, and it was going back and forth and confusion until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made a spark, and then I subdivided it. It was clear like a clear day after a rainy, nasty night. Clear, air is clear, cleaned by the rain, sun is rising, exactly like that.
It was clear.
It was in London. It was here clear. Maybe outside it was raining, but it was like, imagine a stormy, nasty, rainy night, like a few nights passed. And then in the morning, the sun rises, the sky is clear, the air is clean after the rain, it has been washed. That's exactly the feeling you will get, inshallah, when you read it carefully.
Like solving an equation.
Yeah. Even more than solving an equation, this one. The pleasure of it is unbelievable.